Bonjour and bienvenue. Welcome to the Wicked Webs We Weave podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Mckern. And now we go back to the French Quarter on Bourbon Street, to the old Absinthe house. Famous, of course, absinthe, everyone's favorite drink among poets. And also more ghastly tales of the paranormal history. The old Absinthe house is one of the first places I went to on Bourbon Street to get a job in the French Quarter. I met a very cool bartender from Chicago, Illinois. I remember she smoked a cigar, and at the time I had both my eyebrow and labret pierced. And she was talking to me about my piercings. We discussed the Zydeco and Zydepunks bands, the music scene in New Orleans, and just what it was like from moving to the Midwest to New Orleans. She recommended me to her manager, who I then met with, and he didn't have any positions open at the old Absinthe house, but he did walk me down to, at the time, a new bar, New Jazz and Tapas bar on Bourbon Street. There was rumors that perhaps it was run or funded by underground crime in the South. Neither here nor there for me to confirm or deny. These stories and more tonight we will delve into, and I want to thank you once again for joining me in the proverbial darkness. Warm yourself into the alchemies of old, and thank you for joining me in the wicked webs we weave, mon ami. Welcome to 240 Bourbon Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. We investigate the history of the old Absinthe House fire and grocery store. Originally built in 1752, the old Absinthe House notoriety exists because of a few different reasons. It was allegedly the meeting location of General Andrew Jackson and the infamous New Orleans pirate Jean Lafitte prior to the Battle of 1815, during the War of 1812, and a century later, it was a hit spot during Prohibition. It was nearly shut down multiple times. The original building, however, was destroyed in the 1788 Great Friday Fire, conflagration that ravaged the city within hours. For more information on the Great Fire of 1788, please see my previous episode. All that stood after the smoke whisked away was the soot, and it settled that the old Absinthe house was a fireplace. A very solemn and eerie image to behold. Fortunately, the building at 240 Bourbon Street was reconstructed in 1806 by two Spaniards, Pedro Front and Francisco Juncidea, who operated a grocery store for nearly 40 years at the location. They sold globally imported fine wines and tobacco products and made a tidy profit off their business. The Absinthe House became hugely popular in New Orleans, and in 1846, Alex's Coffee House was eager to take over the site to meet the growing demands of their clientele. During the 19th century, you went to a cafe for coffee and a coffee house for other vices. Coffee houses, as they say, work similarly in Louisiana as they did in Europe, in that the other vices generally referred to green fairy, absinthe, or drugs. Alex's Coffee House popularity grew almost directly from the start. Tourists in New Orleans visited the bar regularly, spending the nights willingly away until the dawn peeked over the horizon and workers headed to their jobs. By 1874, it was renamed to the Absinthe Room when mixologist Cayeto Frere created the Absinthe House Frappé. In the coffee house had been popular, the Absinthe Room was even more so, until Prohibition struck, however, and the Absinthe Room faced the possibility of immediate closure. Suddenly, absinthe was no longer all the rage, and the government was actually threatening to have it abolished. The speakeasy's notoriety nearly led to its downfall, when the authorities came to privy to its dealings and threatened to burn it down. But the New Orleanians are nothing if not better, and savvy humans. And so they did one thing. The owners of the Absinthe Room had the bar's operations moved to a safer location a few blocks down Bourbon Street. There, they set up shop in an abandoned warehouse and continued to shell out the business for anyone who was in the know. In that location today is where the Mango Daiquiri shop is on Bourbon Street, another establishment I have applied to and was denied a job. Oh, how the proud have fallen. I digress. Back to the story. When government officials came to their senses and overturned Prohibition, the Absinthe House returned to its former haunt and went back to work. In 2004, approximately 60 years and $3 million later, both the copper-topped bar and all the ghosts that once frequented it came out of storage in the original, though newly renovated location on Bourbon Street. The old Absinthe House has seen its share of celebrities, including writers such as Oscar Wilde, Walt Whitman, P.T. Barnum, Mark Twain, politicians and pirates such as Jean Lafitte, Robert E. Lee, and Franklin Roosevelt, as well as celebrities including Frank Sinatra and Liza Minnelli. In fact, they say everyone you know, or will ever know, eventually ends up at the old Absinthe House. The Ghost of the Old Absinthe House, with an early sketch of the pirate Jean Lafitte. Since we're all fated to be there in one way or another, there's a lot more to the bar than its stubborn resilience through history. When Jackson arrived in New Orleans, he found a city that was unprepared for battle, with neither hope nor time on its side, until Jean Lafitte, our favorite pirate and outlaw, approached Jackson with a deal. Legend has it that a second floor of the old Absinthe House, Jackson agreed to release Lafitte's army of pirates from prison and to grant full pardons to anyone that would fight in the Battle of New Orleans. Lafitte and his men were experts on the swamps and surrounding waters, which proved instrumental for America's victory over the British. Perhaps Jean Lafitte had a strategic plan meeting at the old Absinthe House. Legends tell of the secret underground tunnels linking the tavern to its blacksmith shop further down on Bourbon. Though no evidence of these tunnels have been found, we could speculate perhaps Lafitte wanted to meet in a place where he knew exist, including secret ones. It should be no surprise that its over 200-year history, the old Absinthe House has picked up a few regulars, in fact. The tavern caters to some of its very patrons. The ghost of Jean Lafitte himself is said to throw on occasional spectral party, donning his signature pirate hat, and is blamed for occasionally unexplained sounds of laughter and coercing visitors. And employees have also reported seeing ghosts of Andrew Jackson. The ghosts of Marie Laveau and Benjamin Butler are also rumored to have ventured into the old Absinthe House and roam freely to this day. In addition to these spirits, other ghosts have been seen or felt. A woman in a long white dress, a child running around the third floor, as well as sudden drops in temperature. Perhaps these are ghosts responsible for doors inexplicably opening, bottles and chairs moving about the bar, and mysterious whispers from unseen sources. It's easy to see why the haunted old Absinthe House has a hard time shaking its old patrons. Famous for its absinthe frappe and its immediate proximity to Bourbon Street buzz. Many of its still living patrons find themselves unable to resist its allure. The room is dark and acquainted in exposed beams, leave you feeling small and somewhat suspicious in the shadows. Patrons gathered at the Copper Bar beneath the decor. The old Absinthe House by night is an alluring place, a patron saint of bar to many, and noted in history. I highly applaud you to go visit it for yourself. Rumor also has it that W.C.C. Claiborne met here with Jean Lafitte on the second floor to plan for the defense of New Orleans. The Battle of New Orleans was fought January 8th, 1815. The owner of Maspero's Exchange at 440 Charles Street filed suit against the old Absinthe House over the right to post a historical plaque on the building. Both establishments claimed to be the location where Andrew Jackson had met with Jean Lafitte in February of 1951. A judge in Civil District Court, Parish of New Orleans, State of Louisiana, dismissed Maspero's lawsuit, ruling legend means nothing more than hearsay or a story handed down from the past. Both Maspero's and Old Absinthe House still lay claim to the legend. I would like to thank NewOrleansHistorical.org as well as GhostCityTours.com in research for making this episode. And I would like to thank you all again for joining me in the Wicked Webs We Weave podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And I appreciate how much we have grown and will continue to grow in this podcast, exploring the many legends of New Orleans and beyond. Once again, I am your host, Ryan Mckern. And until we meet again, mon ami, au revoir.